The end of video games is here. Nintendo announced that the Switch 2 will cost $450. Now, some people are saying that's reasonable for a console from this generation, but I don't really think it is, because you have to understand, I have an Xbox Series X and I paid less money for that. And that thing has backwards compatibility all the way back to the original Xbox. And obviously it's a much more powerful system. So right off the bat, I'm like, $450 for a Nintendo Switch 2. See, that kind of prices me out almost, because I was like, well, if the games are affordable, maybe I'll still get one, maybe. But then I found out the games are going to be $70, $80, $90 for a single game. Mario Kart World is going to be $80 for the digital version. And I believe the physical version is $90. You just priced me out. And Nintendo just priced out a lot of people around the world. Because you have to remember, Nintendo is generally directed at families and kids. And who's going to pay this much money? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, a lot of people are expecting Nintendo to have the biggest launch of all time on June 5th when this thing comes out. And that could very well be the case. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was backlash and the sales were less than expected, just because the pricing of this stuff is outrageous. It feels like buying a Nintendo Switch 2 is like walking into a casino. Now, if you walk into a casino, you're walking into a place that's designed to take as much money away from you as possible and give you very little in return. And that's what the Nintendo Switch 2 looks like to me. And it's not just the price of the console or the price of the games. There's more stuff. For example, they have this welcome tour, like instruction manual game, but it's not part of the system. It's not packed into it when you buy it. You actually have to pay for it. It's a paid download. They actually said that during the Switch 2 Direct, which, by the way, during this Switch 2 Direct, they did not mention the price of the console. They didn't mention the price of the games. Everybody had to go like searching on the internet for that information afterwards. So you know that they're expecting people to be unhappy about the prices. But yeah, so this welcome tour thing is a paid download. I don't know who's going to buy that. Again, this is a crazy thing for Nintendo to do, to have this many ways of taking your money away from you. And I haven't even gotten into Nintendo Switch Online. I mean, Nintendo Switch Online actually seems like a good service at this point. I know when it first started, people had issues with it, but they're adding GameCube games to the Nintendo Switch Online library, and it's exclusive for the Nintendo Switch 2. So you can have games like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. A lot of people have wanted to see that game. In the future, they're going to add things like Luigi's Mansion and Mario Sunshine. And that's cool. And as of right now, I don't think there's a price increase on Nintendo Switch Online. You can pay $50 a year, $50 American, and you can get access to games from the NES, the SNES, Game Boy Advance, Sega, Nintendo 64, and now they're adding GameCube. So that seems like a pretty good deal for $50 a year. But I wouldn't be surprised if they raise that price, and they just haven't announced it yet, because Nintendo seems to be trying to hide how much things cost, because they don't want to have another Wii U launch where that system pretty much died on the vine, because you know, it just didn't get the sales that they were expecting. And in this case, everybody is expecting the Nintendo Switch 2 to be such a huge launch. Supposedly, Nintendo is stockpiling Nintendo Switch 2s here in America. They've been shipping them over, and they're just waiting for launch day, and they're expecting, you know, tens of millions of people maybe to buy it right off the bat. And Best Buy is going to hold a like midnight release of the Nintendo Switch 2. But it's crazy to me. I cannot imagine that most people are going to be buying this console, because this is the first time I've seen an announcement like this where I felt like I think I might be priced out of video games for the future forever. So it's like, because once you start having $80, $90 games, a single game, and it's not like some like epic game with the best graphics and the best gameplay and the best story. It's a, like a Mario Kart game is $80. I mean, it's like, what? And the only game I saw during that announcement that I was interested in playing, like I really wanted to get my hands on the system just so I could play it, is probably Donkey Kong Bonanza, which releases in July, which is like a 3D Donkey Kong where he can like break things, and it kind of similar to Donkey Kong 64. It looks like it's not a side-scrolling game. It's like he can go around and interact with the environment, and it looks kind of cool. I believe that game is going to be retailing for $70 for the digital version. That's not enough to buy the system though, and again, $70-$80. I mean, so that's so crazy. I mean, think about it. An Xbox Series S, right, costs $250 or maybe $299, but it's usually on sale for like $250 or something like that. $250 for an Xbox Series S. So if you had the choice, are you going to buy an Xbox Series S or are you going to buy a Nintendo Switch 2? I don't know. I mean, I would buy the Xbox Series S, to be honest. I think that's a better deal, and it's just Nintendo Switch 2 is it's like a crazy leap in terms of like showing everyone that the video game industry, we all knew this already, was the video game industry is predatory, but what Nintendo did, it just made everyone stop for a second and reevaluate their gaming future. There are other things that are wrong with this as well. They announced that they're going to be releasing game cards that don't have the whole game on it. Now, they've done that before, but it wasn't like a common thing. It was like, some of the games which were too enormous, they can't fit on the game card or whatever other reason. But now this is going to be like a regular thing. And so that combined with the fact that digital games are going to be less costly than a physical game, Nintendo obviously wants the consumers to move away from physical media. That's another problem, because if you're talking about game preservation, that's obviously going bye-bye. And we're getting to the point where, it's like you'll own nothing and you'll enjoy that. And why should you even buy a physical game if it's just like a thing you put into your system and it tells you, hey, you have to be connected to the internet to download the other 75% of the game? It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I currently have an Xbox Series X, and like I said, I bought it a few months ago, brand new, and it's less than the Nintendo Switch 2. And I bought a ton of games for it that were on sale and from previous generations. Like, I bought the Batman Arkham trilogy for $6. The retail price is $60, but I bought it on sale for $6. That's the problem with like Nintendo. You rarely see sales on their hardware or their games like that, like gigantic, like 90% off. I got UFC 5, which is UFC's latest video game. I got it for $10, the Ultimate Edition, because it was on sale for 90% off. I mean, that never happens with like a Mario Kart game. Do you think Mario Kart World is ever gonna go on sale 90% off like during the holidays or something? No, it's not gonna happen. So that's the price. It makes me look at the Nintendo Switch 2 as the breaking point for where I'm like, okay, I think I'm done with buying new systems, buying new games, and I think I'll stick with my Xbox Series X, because I can still buy stuff from the original Xbox off the Microsoft Store for like $10. I mean, there's so many games I have on my wish list from the original Xbox, like Time Splitters 2 and Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, and those games only cost $10. SSX 3, and I could get that for $10. Why should I get a brand new system that costs $450? And then each game is going to cost $70, $80, $90. And they're not going to be like epic games. They're just like, regular games, Donkey Kong and Mario Kart, and $70, $80, $90. And then Nintendo Switch Online, $50 on top of that, and they're probably going to raise the price at some point for that one too. So now you're just getting robbed. It's like, I'd rather buy that NES Classic from many years ago that they sold. Like, I could get the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. I could just buy those two together and be done with the future of gaming. At least I can play some cool old games, right? Or maybe, and I was thinking about this, I have a Nintendo 3DS. Actually, it's a Nintendo 2DS XL. And I actually bought it after the Nintendo Switch came out in 2017. And so I was like one generation behind. And now I'm thinking I might do that again. I might buy a Nintendo Switch Lite. So a Switch 1 Lite, because that only costs $200 right now. But if I get that, that's $250 less than a Switch 2, but I'll have access to all the Switch games. And the most important thing to me is playing the old games, because that's really what I want to play. So like Switch Online for $50 a year with a Switch Lite, maybe I'll do that. But it's kind of like, I don't want to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 just on principle alone, because it just really looks like they want to rob you in every imaginable way. Like, even if I could afford to buy the thing and maybe some of the games and maybe Switch Online, like, just on principle, I'm like, you gotta like not say no to this stuff just to say no to bad practices from the video gaming industry. Like, I think that's the reason I'm gonna say no to them. And I honestly think a lot of other people are just gonna say no, especially people who own a Nintendo Switch 1. If you own a Switch 1 and you watched this Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, are you really like jumping out of your seat wanting to buy this system? Why? I mean, you already have a Switch 1, which has an unbelievable like library of games. Combine that with the Nintendo Switch Online, so you have access to a bunch of old games too. You pretty much set there. I mean, the only reason to get a Switch 2, I mean, maybe they'll have some first-party games over the next 7 years that might be a little interesting, but is it worth plunking down that much money for some decent first-party titles, maybe a handful of them? No. I mean, the answer is obviously no if you already have a Switch. If you already have a Switch, stick with the Switch. That's what I would say. There's no reason to go forward with this. I mean, it's like, you know what? It might have been in Nintendo's favor if they had completely switched course and just made a brand new system that wasn't called the Switch. It was just like brand new, totally different thing. A more like a powerful system, like maybe not on par with the Xbox Series X or the PS5, but like right up there. And then maybe people would be like, oh, okay, so Nintendo's going in a new direction, and maybe we would have all had a more positive view of this thing. But no, it's sort of just like an upgrade from the original Switch, but it's a $450 upgrade. So, that's a little too much. It's actually a lot too much. It's way too much, especially, like I said, when you can get an Xbox Series S for $299. And a lot of times it's on sale for less than that. So it's a weird time. It's a weird time for video games, because I think this is like that crossing of the Rubicon moment when you're getting $90 games and a $450 Nintendo system. I mean, we've seen expensive PlayStation systems, Xbox systems, but a $450 Nintendo system, this is that moment where there's a line in the sand, and I don't think I'll be crossing that line. It's just, it would make me feel foolish to buy a Nintendo Switch 2. It just makes me feel dumb, because it's like, that is way too much money. Not just the system, but the games on top of it. And then the Switch Online on top of that, it's just too much. And, the other gaming companies like Sony and Microsoft, I mean, they're not innocent either. Like, for example, I used to have Xbox Game Pass, but recently a lot of great games have been leaving the service, like the Yakuza games on on the Xbox. And I was like, this isn't worth $20 a month. That's how much Xbox Game Pass Ultimate costs, $20 a month. It's not worth $20 a month. You know, Nintendo Switch Online, $50 a year. Okay, that's actually a reasonable thing. But $20 a month for Xbox Game Pass, when tons of games are leaving the service and basically whatever's left is not worth the price. And I think maybe Microsoft is hoping nobody notices that. No, I can't. I let my subscription expire, and yeah, that's that. I mean, I'm cool. I have tons of Xbox games that I bought, like I said, for $5, $10. I have so many games I can play. I have like my own little Game Pass. I have like more than 50 games that I bought for such a cheap price, and that'll keep me busy for a while into the future. So, yeah, I mean, as far as my plans with Nintendo go, like I said, I have a Nintendo 2DS XL. Maybe I might go on GameStop and get a couple of games for that system. Or, like I said, maybe I'll get a Nintendo Switch 1 Lite, hopefully on sale at some point, just so I can have access to the Switch Online library of games, because it's really those are the games I want to play. I want to play the games from the original Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, the Game Boy Advance. I mean, I don't really need to play the games from the GameCube. I mean, that is cool, but if I have to buy a Switch 2 to get access to the GameCube titles, you can keep it, yo. I mean, it's like that's not worth it. Because see, this is when people start to think, is it worth it? Is it worth it? That's the question you have to be asking yourself when it comes to the Switch 2 and all the other added things they put on this thing to take as much money from you as possible. Is it worth it? The answer is no.